President of the United States is said to be one of the most powerful people in the entire world. Every president not only serves as the head of the nation, but is also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. As such, there's a lot of pressure and responsibility that weighs on the president's shoulders. However, there have been some circumstances when the president began his term and was unable to finish it, dying in office. Out of the 45 presidents to date, 8 died while in office. Since the presidential office was set up in 1789, 45 individuals have filled in as President of the United States. John F. Kennedy is possibly the most universally recognized U.S. president who died in office due to the shocking nature of his assassination in 1963. But did you know several other presidents passed away during their tenure? Welcome to History Bazaar. Today we're explaining how every president was killed or passed away from natural causes. William Harrison stands out as having the shortest presidency, which lasted just 31 days. The slave owner, whose actions as a military commander during the War of 1812 defeated Native American coalitions, was elected to serve as the 9th President of the United States in 1841. On March 26, 1841, William Henry Harrison became sick with a cold after his 2-hour-long inaugural address in the rain and subsequent meetings in wet, damp clothing. His health deteriorated over the following days, and specialists were brought in to treat him. It was determined he had pneumonia. Exactly 32 days after being sworn in, Harrison became the first U.S. president to die in office. Zachary Taylor was the 12th president of the United States. On July 4, 1850, Taylor attended numerous orations to commemorate the laying of the Washington Monument Foundation. He ended the blistering hot day by drinking ice water, cold milk, cherries, and other fruit. That night and the following days he fell sick with an intestinal illness. Taylor died 5 days later on July 9th. Over 100,000 people attended his funeral. The 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, was the first to be assassinated while in office. Abraham Lincoln served during one of the most volatile periods in U.S. history. Lincoln, famous as a campaigning slave abolitionist, was regarded as a war hero for his efforts in preserving the Union during the Civil War. His death occurred on April 15, 1865, just as the Civil War drew to an end, in a move that sent shockwaves through the entire nation. His assassin, John Wilkes Booth, a notable actor, shot President Lincoln from behind while Lincoln and his wife were enjoying a play at Ford's Theater. Booth shot Lincoln once in the back of the head, then jumped up from the balcony onto the stage and evaded capture for the next 7 days. Lincoln's wound was fatal, and one of the most celebrated presidents of all time died the next morning. Abraham Lincoln's burial site garners thousands of visits by tourists from all over the world every year. James Abram Garfield was a self-made politician known for his efforts to tackle political corruption and champion the rights of African Americans. James Garfield was the 20th President of the United States and served from March 4, 1881, until his passing by assassination 6.5 months later. The second assassination of a U.S. president, James A. Garfield, was shot while intending to leave Washington, D.C. on July 2, 1881, by train for a cooler climate. A staunch believer in universal education and civil rights advocator, the president was shot at the Baltimore and Potomac Railroad Passenger Terminal by Charles J. Guiteau, an embittered attorney who lay in wait by hiding by the ladies' cloakroom. Guiteau believed the president had denied him a consular post in Paris. Once Garfield was exposed on the platform, Guiteau fired a revolver, hitting the president once in the arm and the back. Wounded, Garfield died 11 weeks later on September 19, 1881, of blood poisoning and complications from the shooting. Vice President Chester A. Arthur became the president after his passing. William McKinley was 58 years old when he was killed by an assassin. The one-time governor of Ohio made few strides to uphold civil rights while serving as president, but was a keen advocate for higher taxes, believing that they would restore prosperity. Despite not making the lynching of African Americans an official crime, he did include 2 African Americans on his inauguration committee. William McKinley was the 25th president of the United States from 1987 until his assassination in 1901. McKinley was the 3rd president to be assassinated when he was shot on September 6, 1901, inside the Temple of Music on the grounds of the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. Just as McKinley was warmly greeting the public, anarchist Leon Czolgosz shot him point blank in the chest. Though doctors predicted a full recovery, McKinley died 8 days later on September 14th from gangrene brought on by the slug wounds. A member of the Republican Party, Warren Harding was the 29th President of the United States from 1921 until his demise in 1923. He was one of the most popular with citizens due to his relatable background as a working man in his younger years. Harding was also viewed by some historians as having little impact due to him seeing the role of president as largely ceremonial. Known for his lack of decisiveness and avoiding issues, he is credited with holding progressive views on race. However, like previous Republican presidents, he failed to adopt anti-lynching legislation and curtailed immigration to the U.S. His marriage was unconventional due to his wife's previous marriage to a man she had a child with and later divorced. Surrounded by rumors of corruption from friends whom he appointed to office, he took a trip to meet and greet the people of America. During his return trip, he became sick with what was assumed to be food poisoning. On August 2nd, he likely suffered a heart attack. His wife was the last person to see him alive, which prompted speculation that he had been poisoned by her to avoid charges of corruption. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was often referred to by his initials FDR. Roosevelt directed the federal government during most of the Great Depression, implementing his New Deal domestic agenda in response to the worst economic crises in U.S. history. He built the New Deal coalition, which defined modern liberalism in the United States throughout the middle of the 20th century. The only American president in history to be elected 4 times, Roosevelt died in office in April 1945. On April 12, 1945, Franklin D. Roosevelt went to the Little White House in Warm Springs, Georgia, to rest and recuperate after the strain of running re-election campaigns. While sitting for a portrait, he fell unconscious and died of a cerebral hemorrhage. Vice President Harry Truman was sworn in to carry out the duties of president the same day. The charismatic U.S. president is associated with one of the most reported and examined assassinations in history. John F. Kennedy was the 35th president of the United States, a Roman Catholic, and the youngest president when he was sworn in office on April 20th, 1961. He oversaw one of the most tumultuous periods in world history, including the Vietnam War, conflict with the Soviet Union, the Civil Rights Movement, and the threat of nuclear catastrophe after the Bay of Pigs crisis in Cuba. Revered as a liberal and a symbol of moderacy in American politics, the handsome cultural icon was barely past his 3rd year in office when he was infamously assassinated while touring in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas. It was the first assassination of a president to be recorded by domestic cameras. He was lethally shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, who fired 3 shots from a 6th-floor window of the Texas School Depository at 12:30 p.m. as the presidential motorcade drove through Dealey Plaza. The motorcade rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where Kennedy was pronounced dead. JFK's gravesite draws tourists from around the world and can be visited at Arlington National Cemetery. The alleged assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald, said to be the lone sniper, was himself shot and killed by nightclub owner Jack Ruby before Harvey could be tried. Thanks for watching History Bazaar. Please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this one.